hometown, Goza in Borno State, and the need to actually look at this issue that Nigerians are almost about forgetting and having a peaceful mind. The Senate notes that on Saturday, 29 June 2024, brazen suicide bombers targeted a wedding ceremony, funeral, and hospital in a sporadic and coordinated attacks in Goza town of Borno State, which resulted in the unfortunate death of 32 innocent Nigerians so far, leaving scores of other victims wounded with varied degrees of injuries. Also notes that one of the incidents occurred near a busy motor park in Tasham Mararaba, Goza town, and the victims were mainly civilians returning from a wedding ceremony where the assailant was identified to be a young lady in her early 20s. Further notes that these attacks have raised significant concern about the security situation in the region, which has been a flashpoint of terrorist attacks over the years. And this calls for concerted and coordinated efforts of the security agencies to address the state of insecurity in Borno State and other parts of the country experiencing similar situations. Aware that in today's world, asymmetric warfare, whereby its strategy and tactics differ significantly from the normal conventional war, the approach by our security agencies should be significant, scientifically and technologically based with the use of modern software and facilities to fight the menace. Accordingly, observe a minute silence in honor of those innocent Nigerians who lost their precious lives from this unfortunate incident. 2, urge the National Emergency Management Agency to intensify efforts by providing relief materials to the victims of the attack. And 3, to urge the federal government to direct the security agencies in the country to deploy the use of modern technology in the fight against insurgency and to make concerted efforts in securing the hotspots inhibited by the insurgents, namely the Lake Chad region, 2, the Sambisa Forest, and 3, the Mandara Mountains, respectively. Mr. President, these 3 spots are so far now the only black spot of where the insurgents are inhibiting in Borno State. I'm very sure if these 3 black spots are cleared, the end of terrorism in Borno State will definitely be achieved. Finally, Mr. President, I cannot conclude without appreciating the avalanche of condolences, sympathies, calls that I received. And therefore, when I went home, my people asked me to thank you very much for the concern shown, especially Mr. President, who personally got in touch with me to sympathize on these incidents, and also directed the Vice President to immediately go to Goza, where he individually went to see the victims that were evacuated to Maiduguri for treatment. And also your humble self, when the incidents happened, in the night when I informed you, you called me and also supported me by even offering to get me to Maiduguri by whatever means. The DSP were together at ECOWAS Parliament, and he too showed concern. All my colleagues, virtually all my colleagues, called me individually and in group, the Northern Senators Forum, the Southern Senators Forum, other individuals showed sympathy and concerted condemnation of this act. I believe that with this display of solidarity, if the Nigerian Army is provided with the necessary tools and equipment, and I must also mention here This time around, the Nigerian Army and other security forces responded promptly and gallantly. In fact, one soldier lost his life and a civilian JTF when they confronted the fifth suicide bomber that detonated the bomb and killed the three of them there. One was a soldier. And mostly, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, that soldier that sacrificed his life was from the South. It is very, I have to mention this because that is the greatest sacrifice one can make. And in fact, that was what led to getting that incident immediately to an end, because they succeeded in arresting one of the last suicide bomber. She's now under interrogation. I must mention here again that these people are already, indoctrinated. All of them their hairs were braided, and they had this Nelly, and they are confident that they were going to heaven if they detonate and kill the people. In fact, the last woman that was arrested, up to now, the interrogation has not brought out so much because she's still insisting that she wants to go to heaven, and that is by killing people and detonating the bomb. So, Mr. President, as I said, the black spots are 3. What needs to be done can be achieved if the Nigerian Army are given specific instruction and attention and provided with what they need, particularly drones and other technologically driven gadgets, in order to get rid of these 3 black spots. Once again, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and once also thank my distinguished colleagues for the support, sympathy that I have been pouring in since the incident happened. I so move.
Third prayer of Ndume. And we should urge the federal government to direct security agencies in the country to deploy the use of modern technology in the fight against insurgency, make a concerted effort in securing the hotspot inhabited by insurgents in Borno and elsewhere in the country. Spreading all over the country, these hotspots are known. There must be a concerted effort to identify those spots and take decisive action against these callous people. To this end, Mr. President, I again second and support this motion very humbly and decisively. Thank you.
The distinguished Senator Mongolo.
Distinguished President of the Senate, distinguished senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. While the passage of this motion by the Senate, I adopt all the submissions and the prayers contained therein in the motion as mine, and want to add further that the resurgence of suicide bombings in Borno State, having consigned it to the dustbin of history in the last 5 or 6 years, is very, very unfortunate and calls for concern. I can vividly recall that at a point in time in Borno State, weddings are done not in group, funerals are conducted not in group, all social activities are conducted individually because of the avalanche of suicide bombings. But because of the zeal, determination, and enthusiasm displayed by the Nigerian military in the fight against insurgency, Boko Haram was decapitated, and their ability to conduct their heinous activities was equally decapitated. But with the resurgence of this unfortunate scenario in Gaza, as I said earlier, calls for concern, and there is need for all arms to be on deck with a view to curbing or nipping in the bud this ugly scenario so that it doesn't separate to other parts of Borno State and indeed other parts of the country. And the only panacea as captured in the prayer is the deployment of technology to nip this ugly scenario in the vote. So I wholeheartedly support this motion in total. Thank you.
Ndume is senatorial district and government and people of Borno State. Mr. President, I want to refer particularly to the last prayer, the third prayer. The third prayer is about the deployment of technology. But before then, one question we should ask ourselves as a parliament, is there anything that is worthy of significant investments by the Nigerian government today, other than the security of the people of Nigeria? Is there? There isn't, is the question. Because any other thing that we wish for ourselves, that we hope and pray for our country, revolves around the security of the people and their property. I will therefore urge us and the executive arm of government to prioritize how we invest. Mr. President, I support construction of roads. But today, what Nigeria needs is to secure their lives. So we should take it as a priority that when we appropriate, henceforth, real investment must be made in the armed forces and other security agencies. Mr. President, last month, I attended an exhibition of new technologies for defense across the world in Paris. And today, the drones, particularly, can be sufficiently and significantly utilized to help our armed forces fight not only in the northeast against the insurgents, but also the banditry in the northwest, north central, and other criminal tendencies in the southern part of the country. So I believe that we should prioritize providing funds for our armed forces to have the right kind of technology that they need. I will also really commend the armed forces that we have, because they still try to do much with the little that they get from us. But I believe the time has come that we look at spending more to secure our people than providing maybe for roads and some other investments that can easily be positively really influenced by providing security in the country. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the privilege.
Because we are talking about insecurity. If I have my way, I would have suggested that all proceedings be suspended today in honor of the innocent Nigerians that were killed by these incredible acts of embarrassment caused in Borno. As a matter of fact, Mr. Senate President, just recalling Thomas Hobbes here, is looking day and day that life of man is short, brutal, and terribly embarrassing if the Leviathan refuses to respond to the insecurity going on day by day, particularly in Nigeria. And this can be very, very dangerous. Living with insecurity is gradually becoming the only way to understand security. And we cannot allow this trend to continue because of the danger that it portrays. I don't want to take much of your time, but I will say clearly, it costs nothing for the intelligent army to get devices in their phone to know where these notorious criminals live. As I'm here, I check my phone regularly, and I know the number of guns that are very close to me here. This is just less than 1,000 installations. Within us now, there are over 277 guns around here, just because an armory is close to this place. So what am I saying? We can use technology, just like distinguished Senator Ndume have said, to deploy to these soldiers, rather using hands and all this unknown strategy.
Prof,
Yes, sir.
You know you have a PhD in warfare.
Yes.
Do you know out of the 277 guns around you here now?
Yes, around the National Assembly.
Do you know how many of them have bullets inside?
Mr. Senate President, we can actually do a probability. If you have 277 guns close to you within a radius of 1 kilometer, the probability that half of them have gone is 1. And that is dangerous. And we need to find out the source of those guns. But because I can locate that armory close to us and very close to Villa, then I understand we are safe. I want to say very clearly that the military should stop using unconventional strategy to fight insurgency in Nigeria. There's a distinction between conventional strategy and unconventional strategy. We need to go to unconventional strategy to fight unconventional war. Boko Haram is unconventional war. It's not a conventional war. We're all aware of what happened in Kenya. We cannot close our eyes. We need to wake up. So I finally suggest to you, Mr. Senate President, and my distinguished colleagues, that this Senate, under your leadership, sir, must have a closed-door meeting for one day, and let's use that whole day to discuss security matters. Our life is very important. The life of man cannot be said to be short, brutish, and unproductive if we do nothing about insecurity. Living with insecurity cannot be the only way to understand security. We shouldn't get to that. Once again, distinguished Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I thank you. Like I said, to me, it's a sad day. I don't think we can eat. We could actually close proceedings today in honor of those people. How can you be going for a wedding and you don't even know what happened? Somebody just put bomb and attacked the whole convoy, and people have started dying. It's sad, it's painful, it's uncalled for, it's unacceptable, and it's rejected in the totality of its formulation. Eliminate. Thank you, Mr. Senate President.
Myself, with all those that spoke on this motion, and to also condole our brother, distinguished Senator Ndume, for this unfortunate incident. Mr. President, I want to also align myself with the issue of technology and the need for us to prioritize security. It is very important to understand that the armed forces and the security agencies are doing their best, and we must commend them for what they are doing. However, it's important for us as a parliament, as mentioned by distinguished Senate President Emeritus, on the need to see how we can ensure that we provide all that is required for the armed forces and the security agencies to enable them fight this battle. What is important now is for the security agencies to go back to their security procedures so that this issue of suicide bombing does not spread, especially to the Northwest. Because if the bandits in the Northwest now adopt this strategy, it is going to be more dangerous. As I'm talking to you, Mr. President, a lecturer was killed yesterday at the Federal University, Dusama. His children and others within the vicinity, about 5 or 6 of them have been abducted and are with these bandits. So it is important that the armed forces and the security agencies go back to the security procedures that have assisted in nipping in the bud the suicide bombing that has been consigned to the dustbin before. So I want to thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity and distinguished colleagues.
June 29th, and that is so unfortunate. And secondly, in a city where I was trained, where I attended the university, and this is one incident too many. For me, we have had so many closed-door meetings on security. It seems to me that we seem to be doing one thing over and over again. What baffles me and continues to baffle me is that we wait until incidents like this happen before we take the fight to them. When it seems to be quiet, that is when I think that the security should get busy to go after these insurgents. It appears that our security networks either is not spread wide enough or the intelligence is failing. Otherwise, we should take this fight to them. It is not when they attack us. We should look for them wherever they are. They don't live, they are not spirits. These are human beings as well. And I think that the security agencies should sit tight with their intelligence and get busy. And we don't have to wait until they attack us before we respond. We should always look for them wherever they are. I don't want to make any example. Something happened like this in Egypt, in Israel, and we know what happened. The whole country went ahead to look for the last man that did it. They didn't wait until it happens again. So we should begin to take this security very seriously, because the life of a Nigerian is an important life to all of us. And we have, and we owe it a duty to safeguard not just properties, but lives of Nigerians. So, Mr. President, in addition to the prayers, we urge that the security network, the intelligence should be strengthened, and they should go after these insurgents even when they have not attacked us, so that we can actually decimate them. This issue of fire brigade response is not going to solve our problem. Thank you, Mr. President.
She was doing this, and she said that she was told that she would go to heaven. A trained mind will ask the person sending her on the mission, why are you not carrying out this mission so that you go to heaven? I therefore think that instead of thinking about how to use technology and the soldiers to fight terrorists, we should deploy education. If we educate young people, we'll be in a position to keep them out of some of these things that embarrass us. In my condolence message to the people of Borno State, in our platform, Senator's platform, I called for reorientation of our youths by our religious leaders. Young girls that were hired to go and commit this act would promise that they will go to heaven. If they were educated, they will not embark on that mission. This Borno State we are talking about have so many educated people. I do not want to accept that educating our young people in that belt will be difficult. I understand that Boko Haram is no to Western education. That's the name, the meaning of Boko Haram. But that area has produced so many brilliant minds, senior advocates of Nigeria. Even Senator Tahim Ongono here is a brilliant legal mind, and he hails from that state. The government should do the right thing. If we invest on education, the governor should take education as a priority, so that no matter how difficult it is, to impact education on our young people, they should go all the hog to ensure that education is provided to our young people coming up, so that this thing can be turned from having minds that are liberated through superstition. Because nobody can believe this, that when you kill another person, you go to see God. So I am saying that even at the prayers and the motion I have looked at, yes, we are talking about fighting those who will go, mobilizing people who will go and get people and stop this. These are young girls, teenagers, have been brainwashed to go and carry bomb and embrace people and kill people and go to heaven. So this is the root of the problem. We have to ensure that the government is directed and urged to go and provide education to our young people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Ekong Samson.
The very deep sympathies of Akwa Ibom South to the people of Borno State over this tragedy. This has signposted a resurgence in some measure. We were beginning to heave some sigh of relief. But what took place in Borno State has jolted us, has jolted our sensibilities that the bad times are back. My heart bleeds for that section of Nigeria. But let me make it very clear that this is not just a tragedy for Borno State, it is a tragedy for Nigeria. It is a tragedy for Akwa Ibom, it is a tragedy for Ukana, it is a tragedy for Lagos State. Because when an incident as tragic as this unfolds in one part of the country, it reverberates, it affects the other parts of the country. A lot has been said about the need to redirect our minds, especially the minds of our youth, the need for technology. But let me add that one trajectory that we must always be alive to is that security is everybody's concern. We must not leave this important assignment only to the government. Everybody must be involved. It is painful that these youths are being brainwashed. Some of them that when they undertake this very risky enterprise, they will end up in heaven. Some are being told that they will meet virgins in heaven. Some of them are being told, the men, the youth among them, that they will meet some in heaven, some, on letter notes, as magnetic as Natasha, as it were. So let me join our colleagues to underscore the side of opinion that we need to do more for our security. Our security agencies have worked very hard. They are doing very well. But we must not leave these assignments only to them. We need to do more to own up our security architecture, knowing that this is a collective concern. We need to educate our young minds more. We need to rededicate ourselves that we cannot go back to the very dark past. So on behalf of Akwa Ibom South, we convey our very deep sympathies to the people of Borno State and challenge Nigerians to re-educate ourselves and to be alive to the very serious challenges that security poses in this country. Thank you.
The new Senator Idiad, on behalf of women.
To the families of those who died through the heinous act committed by suicide bombers that detonated bombs in several places in Goza area of Borno State. Mr. President, this is a desperate action by terrorists who do not mean well for our country. The fact is this. The fact is that they are so desperate, and it clearly shows that they've been defeated, because They no longer have the capacity to use weapons to fight our military. So they now decided to use suicide bombers to kill and maim our people. This is sad. This is very sad. I want to commend our men in uniform, men and women in uniform who have been doing very well to protect us. It shows that the work they are doing is yielding results because they feel, the terrorists, that they can no longer fight them. And that's why they've resorted to these acts of using suicide bombers. What I want to add here is that we call on them not to rest on their oars. We call on them to put more grease onto their elbows, to continue to fight until these people can no longer even use the suicide bombers. I also want to call on Mr. President to continue what he's doing. I know what he's doing. I know he's meeting every day, he's working, having sleepless night to show that, to make sure that this country becomes safe from terrorists and bandits. And it clearly, what happened in Woza last week demonstrates that the entire thing that has been done by Mr. President and his team is yielding result because these people feel that they can no longer fight using weapons. So what we need to do is to find a way to make sure that they cannot use the suicide bombers any longer, using devices that can detect those that have been are ready to kill themselves in order to kill others, to detect them so that they can no longer use suicide bombers to kill and maim our people. I commend Senator Ndume for bringing forward this motion, and I also commend all those who contributed.
Here, Mr. President, for purposes of emphasis. And when critical matters like this come, we have one thing to say or the other. And sometimes we say, without sounding like a broken record, we want to make certain contributions. So, Mr. President, actually, I've been meaning to make a contribution on this matter because it's a security matter. And if you note where I come from, we have had issues of security challenges and the death of people. And Mr. President, my concern here is the fact that everything that we keep talking about security here is in reaction to attacks on communities. It's in reaction to death of people. Mr. President, I think we must change the narrative and the trajectory from which we approach the issue of security. Let me therefore extend my very heartfelt condolences to the people of Borno State, and in particular, the people of Goza. Those of us who have followed the insecurity situation in the Northeast, particularly in Borno State, know that Goza has been at the receiving end of attacks by Boko Haram insurgents. And so, Mr. President, if we have been talking about insecurity, government out, government in, week out, week in, month out, year in, year out, and we are still confronted with the menace of frequent attacks on our communities and the killing of vulnerable, defenseless civilians, then, Mr. President, we want to ask ourselves salient questions and then appeal to government to take the bull by the horn and be the government that will solve the problem of insecurity in Nigeria. Mr. President, I don't want to believe that our military that have been drafted into this war do not know what to do. Be it a symmetric war or a conventional war, they are all mere semantics. The fact is that it's a war. And soldiers are trained to fight wars, whether it is asymmetric or conventional. And I don't want to think that appealing to the soldiers to deploy technology is the answer to the question, because they are trained to identify wars and to deploy appropriate mechanisms to solving the problems of war. And so, Mr. President, I think we want to challenge the Nigerian military. We cannot continue talking about insecurity, particularly the Northeast, particularly Goza, like I said, that has had a receiving end of this insurgency. So let's think that for once, we make a very passionate appeal to this government. Let this government be the government that will end insecurity in Nigeria. I so submit, Mr. President.
The thing repeating themselves, the heinous crime, very sad incidents, horrific as it is, a resurgence of a very serious angle to banditry and then Boko Haram. And then, of course, our sympathies and commiserations go to the good people of Borno State and Gosa in particular, and distinguished Chief Whip. So the Chief Whip of the Senate, let me thank you for bringing this up. When that incident happened, many Nigerians were not able to sleep well. And because insecurity in any part of the nation is insecurity everywhere. So I believe together you heard your colleagues, the actions that took place are very condemnable. But then something that you brought up, which was important, is that it is not that the security agencies did not react, that one of them even paid the supreme sacrifice. And then also they were able to apprehend the last suicide bomber, who is now providing insights into the plans that they have, and then insisting that she should be allowed to go and detonate the bomb for her to go to heaven. So it's both psychological, mental, as well as physical. So the police cannot be everywhere. The federal government cannot enter every traditional gathering in the country and every wedding. But at least we have brought up something very serious here, that we should also employ a lot of technology. The technology, you don't need to be physically there. You can monitor from miles away to know when there is likely going to be an infraction in security. And also, what happened there could also be described as failure of intelligence. Because we have so many suicide bombers gathering together, it means we've not penetrated their camps. Otherwise, we would have known that they were going to strike. So preventive security must also be emphasized. So I thank all my colleagues for their contributions, and I pray that let us go into the prayers, and then from there we can proceed solutions that could help us to stem the tide of this current resurgence. Thank you, the Chief Whip, and please accept my personal condolence on the losses. Prayer 1, observe a minute silence in honor of those innocent Nigerians who lost their lives from these unfortunate bombings. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, urge the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to intensify efforts by providing relief materials to the victims of the various attacks aforementioned. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge the federal government of Nigeria to direct the security agencies in the country to deploy the use of modern technology in this fight against insurgency and banditry, to make concerted efforts in securing the hotspots inhabited by the insurgents, clearly named Lake Chad region, Sambisa Forest, and Mandara Mountains. Those in support of prayer.
Amendment, sir.
Yeah? Somebody said something?
Yes, sir. Amendment to prayer 3, sir.
Amendment or addition, the federal government of Nigeria to direct the security agencies to deploy the use of modern technology in the fight against insurgency, banditry, and this Boko Haram. And then another aspect of prayer 3 is that they should also make concerted efforts to secure the hotspots inhabited by the insurgents, which are known, such as Lake Chad region, Sambisa Forest, and Mandara Mountains. Those in support of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes. Who wanted to do additional prayer? Senator.